All right, welcome back, everyone, to Camp Conversations, the podcast where we focus in on the keys to resilience and we speak to experts in the field and we share stories of resilience to get tips and strategies for everyone listening, myself included. And so today I am so excited to have Rebecca Mullen back with us. She is our marriage coach that all of you loved listening to. Last time we spoke about 3 roles that fall within relationships. And actually, I should fix that, relationship coach, because we're not specifically talking about marriage. And we discovered that last time because we were able to apply some of your strategies even to my friendships. And I was just telling Rebecca that this is the first podcast where I found myself walking down the streets in Fernie and people stopped me and said, "Hey, I listened to your podcast and that one focused on relationships." And I'm like, yes, I'm having her back in 2026. Give me your questions. And so, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming back and joining us today.
It is so much my pleasure. I absolutely loved our last conversation, and I've been looking forward to this one just because your presence and your ability to tune in to the deepest part of intimacy and examine yourself and examine and think through the listeners that you have to ask honest questions because we're all trying to figure this out together, right?
Yes. Oh, thank you. And I didn't do your introduction justice because the main piece that we're focusing on today is your book. You're also an author.
Yes. Can I grab it?
Yes, please do. So, for those of you listening, Rebecca's book is 6 Steps to Better Marriage Communication. And even just having it as marriage, again, I want to say that even as I read your book, I'm like, yes, using this in my marriage, but also using this in my communication habits with my own family member, my extended family, my friends. It's just has so many great tools and strategies.
And I do a lot of speaking to business organizations
Mm.
because the same key principles work when you're trying to communicate at work. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's just human communication.
Yes. And it seems like something so easy, and yet it is so
Oh,
challenging.
it's I may have been able to articulate it in 6 simple steps, but they are not easy.
I actually was thinking that as I read through your book, is that you've been able to dial this down into 6 steps. And I was like, how does her brain work? Because so many of these things I have learned as a counselor, and yet in the moment, I need that almost step to by step framework to help me from becoming overwhelmed by my emotions or all the narratives that are running through my head. And you did that.
Oh, thank you, Dana. That's very sweet. And holy cow, it's like my life practice was. I told you last time that my motivation for getting good at relationship communication was my parents' divorce. And that
Mm-hmm.
happened when I was 5. I've been studying this literally since I was a 5-year-old because I
Mm-hmm.
said very, like impertinent things as a child trying to learn. I could see my parents' relationship was broken because they didn't have resources. Not just that they didn't fit. I was like, you guys don't know how to talk to each other. I could see that as a kid. So it's a 50-year project, Dana.
Yeah, and I actually I laughed out loud in your dedication because you had a dedication to your husband, and then you had a dedication to your 2 kids. And I'm going to paraphrase this, but it was something along the lines of like, "Thank you for showing me that this is effective."
Well, there's a sweet story. David and I eloped, and we eloped because I told him I was never going to get married because I didn't think marriage worked. And and yet he knew me well enough to know it was actually ceremony and ritual are hugely important to me.
Mm.
So he just told me we're going to get married tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And we did. Um, we didn't tell anybody we had gotten married for 2 years anyway. But then fast forward 30 years, as we're coming up on our 30th anniversary, both of my children knew that there was a little hole of that ceremony, right? The public ceremony. So we all agreed that we would have an anniversary party, and we had an anniversary parade down my mountain road and into my backyard where I have this beautiful fire circle. And then my children stood up and talked about my marriage. And I'm going to get choked up because they described something that I had never seen.
Mm.
And I felt like, oh my gosh, I think I might have done that thing. I wanted to create a whole family. And I think that's what I did. And it wasn't until that moment that I saw they have a totally different view on this. It was cool.
Wow,
It was
that
really
is so
yeah.
beautiful.
I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky.
Oh.
And I've put in a
And
lot of work. Yeah.
I was going to say, you put the work in.
Yeah.
I elope
But
too.
I always want to claim the luck because I work with couples who do, like especially one person is doing their work. And because their sweetheart isn't, they don't get to have what I have gotten to have. So I'm just so grateful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for acknowledging and honoring that as well, because I think there are going to be listeners hearing this. And sometimes when you read relationship advice, even if you're in a place where, yes, the other partner has checked out or whatever is going on, it still adds a layer of shame.
Yes.
When you feel like, well, I should be doing more.
Right.
And that's not what I took away at all from
Good.
talking to you or from your book.
Yeah.
And I want you to go over the 6 steps, because I think for me that tied into, as soon as I read your 6 steps, and sorry to jump ahead, and when you had the beware of conditions,
yeah.
As soon as I read that, I was like, this is the relationship expert I want to talk to, because you're highlighting both sides. Yes, you can put this work in. Yes, there are also pieces you have to be aware of in your partner and in yourself.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I'm so glad it resonated with you. It makes me happy because I just think you're so wise. And the fact that I could have something to say to you makes me go, it was worth it. It was worth it.
Oh, well, thank you. And it's obviously resonating with our listeners. And before I get you to highlight your 6 steps, I too eloped. My husband and I eloped. So maybe we should have this later special celebration. Yes. Ski towns, eloping.
That's really sweet. Why did you guys elope?
A similar reason, just the whole planning, the different views on what marriage is, but knowing that we wanted to make a commitment to each other and that it was most important just for the 2 of us. And yeah, we got married in my best friend's backyard shed.
So sweet. I love it. I love it. And my son eloped.
Oh, wow.
And his then fiance said, are you sure your mom's going to be okay with this? And he laughed and he said, well, if she's not, she has only herself's example to blame.
Yes. That's funny. The modeling, it never ends. Okay, well, tell us. I think everyone listening is like, what are these 6 steps? Tell us these 6 steps to better marriage communication.
And obviously, we're going to flesh them out.
Yes.
Because they don't sound like monumental steps, but here they are. The first step is to overcome fear, because fear will leave you so lonely. And we'll talk more about that. The second step is to get clear, because when you aren't clear what you want, you send really mixed signals. And fear, that when you aren't clear, fear is just fertile to scare you more. The third step is to ask cleanly. I have a clean ask formula that we'll talk about. The fourth step is the one you mentioned, beware conditions. Because we impose conditions because we think the rules of love will keep us safe, but love doesn't work like that. The fifth step is my favorite. It's affirm lovingly. And it's all about affirming the person, affirm the love, affirm the life you have, so that you can, sixth step, build healthy boundaries, build boundaries.
And the piece we talked about in our first conversation was that so often when we are looking for advice and talking to friends, sometimes even therapists, we jump so quickly to the boundary piece. Mm-hmm. And it sets us up for failure.
Because the reality of a healthy boundary is it's built on the back of the first 5 steps. Mm-hmm. When you just draw a line in the sand, it isn't relational. Like, a boundary should magnify your love. But if you're not affirmational, if you're not asking cleanly, if you have conditions polluting your love, a boundary just adds confusion until those first 5 steps are really well articulated.
Mm-hmm. And just in the opening of your book, as I was telling you before we started recording, I've recommended this to a few clients and a few friends. And so it's been great to chat about it further. And one thing that keeps standing out, it stood out for me, and I've realized has stood out for a lot of people, is when I think of that piece of jumping right to boundaries, it didn't quite resonate with me that there's a fear piece going on in my head. Mm-hmm. And so I would go to say the boundary, and then you, in your first step, overcoming fear, talk about that fear and love tug of war. And I had this pause, reflection of how many, I still have young kids, so often conversations are happening right before bed, and you're both laying in bed, and you have this tug of war. Do I say it? Do I not say it? Is it gonna keep me up tonight? Is it worth talking about? Yes. And I'm like, that tug of war, like, it's really happening. Like, I am exhausted by the time I've decided whether or not to say something. Yeah. And so that overcome your fear and that emotional tug of war. Can you tell me a little bit more about that piece?
So the quick example that I give is, I'm a musical theater person. My undergraduate degree was in theater. My husband and I met in The Music Man. It's such a cute little story that he was Harold Hill, the Music Man, and I was Marion the librarian. And there we were, falling in love in high school in front of everyone to see. And so I use examples like, I love singing. I want a house full of singing. And I think about how dramatic I want to be. And I love this boy so much. And I just want to run up to him and kiss him and sing. And then my fear says, are you kidding? If you do that, you might get rejected. You might realize, he might realize you're too big a person. And so we have these lovely desires, and love makes us want to do things that are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And then our fear, which, Dana, is really very well-intentioned. It's trying to protect me from the rejection that sweet boy playing Harold Hill opposite me might reject me and hurt me. So my fear comes in and says, shut your mouth, shut your mouth, don't sing. So that's the tug of war.
Yes. And I think fear too, you touched on this, and it reminds me of work I do with clients, and it is about how quickly fear can collect evidence. And
oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's all it does. I mean, and our brains answer the questions that we let our brain have. Mm-hmm. So, like, in that moment, I'm like, what are all the ways he could reject me? Oh my gosh, are you serious? He might reject me. And then my brain goes, it's imagination, right? It goes and tells this whole story that David, my husband and then boyfriend, wasn't present for. Mm-hmm. So I'm afraid of all these narratives that he had no hand in creating.
Yes. And I'll talk to friends and acquaintances and clients, and they're like, yeah, and my fear will look out and see a certain look or a certain
Yes.
body language or or it will remember a certain comment, and my fear will categorize that as they didn't like it.
Yes,
Oh, remember
exactly.
that they didn't like that singing at all. Mm.
Absolutely. And I call that, you probably have a similar name for this. I call that being in someone else's business. Because
Mm.
when I see a look on my husband's face and I decide what the look means, I'm in his business. So I've learned to ask, tell me the story of the look on your face.
I like
Instead
that.
instead of saying, why are you judging me? Because
Hmm.
if I let my fear have its voice, right? My fear will say, why are you judging me? Or why are you disappointed in me? Or all the narratives that we can fill in. But when we overcome fear, we can say, I have a fear right now based on the look on your face. Can you tell me about it? So that's me recognizing the fear. And I'm not going to get rid of fear, but I can overcome it by being vulnerable and saying, my fear tells me the look on your face is judging me or has
I
something to say.
Yes, and I love how you framed it that way, because I think so often we go to this place of, why are you looking at me like that?
Exactly.
And
Yep.
I think it's the same for kids and adults. The minute, for me, as soon as someone says, why are you looking at me like that? I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? Like I get defensive.
Looking at you at any way.
Yeah. And I either do one of two things. I completely open up and I'm like, actually, here's my chance. I'm going to unload everything on you. This is why I'm looking at you that way. Or I go to like, I can't open this can of worms. Nope, nothing. My face is like,
Yeah.
but when instead you put it on yourself and said, hey, the story my brain is telling me when I see you look at me from the side instead of face on is that you don't like what's happening or whatever that might be. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Or
Yeah.
can you tell me if I'm right or wrong here?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
if you just want a quick phrase, I love the phrase, tell me what it's like to be you right now.
Tell me what it's like to be you right now.
Because that's just
I like that.
curiosity.
Yes.
And fear, we all know our fear is this huge imagination. If we can get curious about our fear, tell me what it's like to be you right now. There's no judgment, there's no shame, there's no assumption, even. It is curiosity, clean curiosity that's inviting intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Because it could be that when I am like singing at the top of my lungs and dancing around him, maybe he's getting uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he's overwhelmed because he knows I want him to join me and he's scared to join me. He could be thinking a million different things, but if I ask him, what's it like to be you right now? Then I get to hear. I get to connect. I get to know him better. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not about me. Overcoming my fear or overcoming fear, that just means being able to let your say to your fear, could you get in the back seat? I hear you. I hear that you're worried about something, but I don't want you driving the car. So I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna drive you safely by asking people, oh, what's it like to be you right now? But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna let the fear drive because
Mm-hmm.
that's when we get in trouble with communication.
Mm-hmm. I like that. And so, okay, a question is formulating in my head as I hear this analogy. And I won't let the fear drive me. And I'm curious, is there anything that you can say? My brain instantly goes to, because I mostly work with adults and they're young people.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can say to the other person when we see their fear driving them, or do we leave it in these adult relationships? When I see my loved one closing down because it's too much to talk about, or if I say, tell me what it's like to be you, and I see their fear just won't let them, what do I do there? Do I take a step back?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's the moment, right, where the door of intimacy is cracked.
Mm,
And here's what I'm going to say for sure is don't ask yourself to get it right every single time because that's too much pressure.
mm,
So I'm going to invite you to try a couple things. But very first of all, if you get it quote unquote wrong, or if the person has a reaction you don't like, don't take that as stop trying. Because people who are afraid, intimacy is terrifying.
Mm.
And so if we can make a commitment, I'm going to overcome fear. I'm going to overcome fear in my own life. I'm going to overcome fear everywhere I see it. The first thing I try to do is just name it. You look like you might be feeling something negative right now. You almost look afraid. You look like you're hurting. Am I wrong? And I love that phrase. Tell me where I'm wrong. I learned this from my teacher, Martha Beck. Tell me where I'm wrong. Because it says, I'm going to make a hunch about what I see on your animal body, right? We all communicate with our bodies. I'm going to guess. I'm going to say what it looks like to me. It looks like you're worried that I'm going to attack you. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So
I
that's
like
one
that.
strategy. But
Mm-hmm.
another strategy is physical touch. Like if it's a child, oftentimes I'll just kneel down, I'll look at that child and I'll maybe touch them on the arm and say, "Hey, how you doing? Everything okay?" Just a check-in. When we touch people very gently, not invading their space, but trying to say, we're sharing this moment, it signals to the other person's animal body, I'm a safe person.
Mm-hmm.
You are safe. And if your sweetheart has a traumatic history with relationship, or even just a history full of a history devoid of good examples, you're you're into marriage or that primary relationship is full of very dangerous moments, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
get scared left and right in that kind of relationship. So being able to say, "Hey, I'm safe. I'm your safe person."
Mm. I actually, as we're talking this through, yesterday I was on the ski hill with my kids and we were going up the bunny hill and we just keep sharing ski hill examples. And I saw a couple, I'm assuming they were a couple, and the one was very obviously a beginner and didn't get off the chairlift in time. And they were panicking. And so the other one got off and was yelling and they stopped it. And you saw the person then get help, get down, and come to their partner. And the partner that was waiting at the bottom that had done the yelling first said, "What happened? Why did you do that?" Like you could see they went to that, like, "I'm scared. I'm going to ask you these big questions." And I watched as the other partner kind of got smaller for a second.
So,
And the partner that asked the questions checked themselves. And then they changed their body language and they said, "Oh,
oh,
can I give you a hug?" And I was like, "Oh,
oh,
wow, this is
oh,
so
thank you, thank you,
beautiful."
thank you.
And I really wanted to go over and be like, "That was so nice to watch." But I'm like, "Don't do it. That's invading their personal space." But
It's so true. And you've nailed the exact thing that happens is moments in life shove us out of our comfort zone into our panic zone.
mm-hmm.
And everybody reacts differently in their panic zone. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So when you see someone with that deer in the headlights look, they're frozen. And it is so, this is what I did to my husband. I said, "Engage with me. You've disappeared."
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that didn't really help.
It's like I'm now further into this.
So I had to admit that I scared my husband.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. So for me, overcoming fear in that sense was I want to overcome how I constantly scare him. And
Mm.
it was me recognizing when I get panicked, fight. That's where I go. I lean in, I'm aggressive. My husband is freeze.
Mm.
That's a bad combo.
Wow. What a
And
group.
just understanding that helped me slow down and go, if I want to overcome fear, and I always, when I have clients, I'll say there's partner one, partner two, and then there's the relationship, and it makes a triangle together. As your relationship coach, I'm here to serve the relationship. I will also try to serve each of you, but primarily I'm going to be looking at the dynamic and pointing at how, if we can change the dynamic, you're going to find each other closer together.
Do you find people often come to you? This is a curiosity that I think other listeners might be wondering. Come to you wanting you to pick a side, or do they often come wanting you to stand for the relationship?
I think it's human nature we each want to, I want to know that I'm right and he's wrong. Mm-hmm. That's human nature. That actually is kind of biologically programmed into our bodies, because think of ancient culture. If you didn't belong to a tribe, your chances of survival were pretty low. Mm-hmm. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to get banished from that tribe. So we have a really strong instinct to want to be right and to prove that we are right, because then we will be accepted. And so it isn't so much that people want me to take sides as they want me to validate that they are right. And I go, oh, sweetheart, I love that. Totally human. I can offer you so much compassion for why you do what you do. And if you want the point of that triangle, the relationship, we got to get curious about all the ways you could do things differently. And it doesn't mean that the way you chose was wrong. It just means we're going to get curious about how to serve the relationship, not just the life you had dreamed up for yourself.
Thank you for saying that, because I often hear, when I am referring people to speak to someone specifically about the relationship outside of my practice, I hear hesitation from one partner often, because one partner will often say to me privately, or even in front of their spouse, I don't want to go to a relationship therapist or expert or coach, because they're just going to tell me I'm wrong and they are right.
Yeah.
And so it's really wonderful for you to break down that stereotype, that that's not actually the point at all.
No. And every one of us has reasons for the way we do things. And so my first step is always, let's be compassionate for you. Mm-hmm. And when I can, in a couples meeting, when I can show each person what it looks like to have compassion for the reason their sweetheart chose the path they chose, mm-hmm. life changes. Because then it isn't about being wrong or right. It's about having compassion for why they make the choice they make. Because we all are trying our best, Dana. Mm-hmm. We all want love. And we think we're on the path to get it.
Yes. Yeah. And okay, there was one story you shared in your book that I really want to jump into, because I think it will resonate with our listeners. And that was the one about you going away for a weekend and then coming home. Before I get you to share that story, is there anything more that you want to build out in that, in our 6 steps? Because we're kind of skipping over some, the overcoming fear and the getting clear and asking cleanly.
I'm going to send you, I put together a collection of episodes that kind of, there's 2 episodes that explain the first half, the first 3 steps, and there's an episode that explains the second 3 steps. And then I have a dedicated episode for each of the 6 steps. And I'm going to send you that PDF.
And we will attach it to this show note.
Yeah, because the honest truth is we're not going to get it all done right now.
No, and it won't do it justice.
No. But I loved the example you asked me to share.
Yes, please share that example, because I read it and I was like, oh, I really need to read this through, because I have been here so many times.
Yeah. I want to offer compassion first to myself in this story, because this was a really, really hard time in my life. I had put my husband through medical school at this point. Short story, I married a carpenter. When I was pregnant with our second kid, he said, I want to change. I want to go to medical school. And he didn't have an undergraduate degree yet. So we were talking long educational. It was 10 years.
Wow.
And when this story happened, we were living in Albuquerque. He was doing his residency in emergency medicine. He was in the second year, maybe, of his residency. In addition to being kind of single parenting it for 6 years at this point, no longer than 6 years at this point, my mother had died. My brother had died. And I had another brother who nearly died. And my husband's brother was in a near fatal car accident. I spent so much time, and I am leaving out some people. I spent so much time in the ICU during those years. I was just a shaky mess. And so I'm offering myself the compassion to go, I was not full of resources. I went away. David took some time. I just told him, I need some time. There's this writing workshop up in Santa Fe. I want to go to it. He goes, oh, yes, go. I've got the kids. Everything's good. I went away. I had this fabulous time writing, connecting with myself. My tank is full. For the first time in months, I'm excited to see my husband. And I'm thinking, I want to have a little kissing and a makeout session. And I had not felt that vitality in so long. So I'm excited. And I walk in the door and they're at the table eating pancakes for dinner. And my children are in their pajamas. Now, this is not the way that I run a household.
And this wasn't morning. Yeah.
Wasn't morning. It was clear that they had not gone outside, which is sort of a daily value for me, that my children get playtime. They clearly were eating sugary dinners, which meant they were going to be wired. And that kissing makeout session, that was going to get so postponed because these kids were not going to get to bed. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but it was something like, oh, I see you're having pancakes for dinner. And as we talked about, the look on my face was an accusation, not an observation. And I said one or two more things just to let him know he'd gotten the parenting thing wrong. And he said to me, it was more fun when you were not here. Oh, gosh. Oh, that hurt so bad. And I just started to tear up, and I walked down the hall by myself, and I don't even remember exactly what happened in that moment, but I will now give you, because my husband isn't a natural revealer, and because we're still learning these 6 steps, right, in our marriage. He said, I found out years later, Dana, that just before I left, my husband had taken care of 4, he's an emergency room physician. He works at the Albuquerque hospital where it's the gun and knife show. It's a horrible place to work. The weekend before we left, and I don't remember exactly which horrible thing it was, but I know that he'd had 4 kids that were just murdered at gunpoint at one time when he went to work. And at another time when he went to work, there was a man that he was taking care of whose wife had died in the car accident they were in. And David didn't tell me these stories. He's a HIPAA compliant person, but he also he didn't want to bring those stories home. So for him, being a good parent that weekend was about putting a kid in each arm, watching television, letting himself doze, and just feeling the safety of his family. And I didn't know any of that. But to see how we can think we're right, like any person who heard me come in the door and see the piles of laundry and go, I left you all chicken soup and you're having pancakes? Like, give me a break. I made this so easy for you. They would think I was right, justified in my anger of my husband. But that's why it's so important to extend compassion to and meet everybody where they are. if I could have said to my husband in that moment, huh, I left chicken soup. Why'd you choose the pancakes? And really been curious about it
Mm-hmm.
instead of accusatory, I think he would have actually told me how horrible a week he'd had. But
Mm-hmm.
I shut him out when I said, you do it wrong.
Mm-hmm. And I loved when I read your book, you share that story, but you share the first half, and then you share a snippet of the second half. Like he had challenges in his week and he came home exhausted. And he said, you as the reader might still be thinking, I was right. I was right to be as angry as I was, and I was right to shut him out, and I was right to say these things. And that reminded me, I loved that piece of the book because that narrative was still going in my head.
Yeah.
And you validated that for me. And then it also helped to remind me that so often when I am looking to vent to a loved one, to a therapist, to whoever that safe person may be, I only share my side of the story.
Of
And
course you do.
yes, and sometimes that can really reinforce that I'm right, I'm right. And
Mhm.
you have a phrase for that. You describe that in a certain way in the book about how we love to chew and just hang on to the fact that
Yeah.
yeah, tell me about that.
Well, this I learned also from my teacher. She calls it story fondling.
Well, yeah, that is it.
And the thing is, I was so tired, Dana, and I was right, quote unquote, to be upset. But
Mm-hmm.
my need to have David be a fully participating parent and just give me a break. I just wanted one weekend. That didn't just because I that was a valid desire for me. It didn't mean he had capacity to offer it. I will tell you that David wanted to. He was the first one to say, go, go, go. But it all he had capacity for that weekend was to sit on the couch with his children and let them watch TV while he dozed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I hear two things there. One is this idea of almost triaging your needs. I mean, the need to get a break and to connect with your peers and fill yourself back up was the priority need. There is a need to have that organized space to make sure your kids are living the value of outdoor time and eating healthy. But at this stage of life, that was a little bit below. But in our moments of that, you didn't do it up to my level, we forget that triage. And
I
not only is it like a relationship rupture, it's also a rupture to meet that need, to get support from that partner to meet that need again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's so true. And the crime of young parents is you're getting your career off the ground, you're learning how to interact with your sweetheart, and you're raising young children all simultaneously and learning how to run a household.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much. It is too much to think that you're going to do all of that up to the level of your values. You got to let that go. And so
Yeah.
this triage component of what's most important in this moment. And then being able to give yourselves some space so that you do have time every once in a while to get perspective and not just be reacting to the next moment, the next moment, the next moment. And I didn't have a lot of that space at that time in my life. So I
Mm-hmm.
was not a very resourceful person.
And I would guess statistically, this is a complete guess, that in couples right now raising kids, the likelihood that at least one person in the partnership came from a home of parents that were not together or
50%.
challenging model. Yeah.
It's 50%.
Mm-hmm. So it is
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And so in the background, that fear voice that is always trying to protect us, that my challenge is I want you to notice the message, but ask it to sit in the back seat so it's not driving the bus because so many of us have the fear voice. We're going to get divorced eventually. This is probably it. We're going to get divorced eventually. This is probably it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it worth, and like you said, sometimes you hit, and I said too, sometimes you hit a place where the fear and the love are fighting internally. And there's also, I almost have this third voice of exhaustion.
Oh, yes.
And that exhaustion voice can be so loud.
It's
And so it's like, oh, well, and if I have that fear voice of this is going to be the end, then
yes.
sometimes exhaustion partners with that voice and goes, well,
Yep.
is it better just to cut our losses now? Because I don't have the energy for this
Yeah.
anymore.
Oh my gosh, Dana, what you just said, I wish I could have known that there were other people feeling that when I was going through this, because I
Mm,
don't talk to a young couple that doesn't go, we should just cut our losses. And I
mm,
just want to say to them, oh, sweetheart, you are in the trenches. This is not the moment to make this decision.
mm-hmm,
And the promise of that moment is David and I have a lot of experiences like that where we were both at our worst. And although my husband did say, I was happier before you came home. And that's a harsh thing to hear. But he didn't say, you're a horrible person. He didn't criticize my fundamental nature. And I never criticized his fundamental nature. Is that true? I'm not going to say that's 100% true because
mm-hmm.
sometimes I did do some criticizing. But what I
All
do
guilty.
know, right? What I do know is we kept trying to be gentle with each other, even if that meant that I said, I can't be around you today. Because sometimes you just need to survive for a little while. And then you get into a new stage of life. And then all of that you survived together bonds you. I am bonded to my husband like you cannot believe
Mm-hmm,
because of what we went through together, what
mm-hmm,
we built together. Oh,
mm-hmm,
and that's the dream I want to give to every young couple is to say, yes, you are in the trenches. Yes, you are surviving. But instead of letting fear narrate, is this the end? Is this the end? Ask a different question, which is, how are we bonding during this moment? How am I being the character, creating that kind of deep character that I want to be in this moment? How is my sweetheart rising to the challenge? How can I assume the best positive intent, even if we don't yet have the skills we need? How are we doing our best in this moment? When you ask that question, you get very different answers.
yes. And I want to run with this in two ways. One, I find there's such value in having friendships or relationships in real life, or if this is not accessible to you, in through books like yours that share actual real life examples of couples that have been through the trenches and are still together and have figured out how to make it work.
Yes.
Because having that relate piece and
Yes.
also seeing the growth piece is just so inspiring. It gives you this big picture of, yes, other people have been through this too. I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And it gives you an imagination of the relationship you could have. Because
Mm-hmm.
in the moment, I'm like, I have a husband who feeds my children pancakes. That is not what I want. But if I assume positive intent and I go, David knew what he needed to do to take care of himself that weekend. And I want a partner who knows how to take care of themselves so that we can both be strong for our children or so that we can be strong for each other.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of, I think the stage of life I found hardest was right after my first was born, because I didn't have any examples of what families looked like at that stage, and I didn't remember my own. So I found that stage very challenging. And I remember one day on the internet seeing this picture. It was a comic, and it was a young mom silhouette standing in the doorway, looking at the night sky, holding her baby, and going, "Oh yeah, there is a whole big world outside of this."
Mm.
And I think about that now, and your example made me think of that too, is when I'm going through tough
Yes.
moments or in the trenches,
Yes.
my world and my views can get really small and everything can very tiny. And I like this piece of connecting with the bigger because it reminds me, oh no, this isn't the everything. There's so much more ahead.
And this moment in the trenches is building the dream of
Mm-hmm.
what I'm aimed at.
Mm-hmm.
Last time we talked about type 2 fun. Some of young parenting is type 2 fun. It is
Yes.
not fun in the moment. But I got to tell you, we tell so many funny stories about being in those trenches.
Yeah.
Tragedy plus time is humor, right? So you're kind of living some tragedies, whether they are the exploding diaper or the mother who dies.
Mm-hmm.
If it's your tragedy in your moment, it's the biggest tragedy happening to you. And so you just got to give yourself some time to find that laughter, to find the
Yeah.
bonding.
And I think even to honor the couples without kids is,
Yes.
it is such a harsh reality that aspects of any relationship have type 2 fun. No matter what, you're going to go through
Yeah.
the trenches.
If you want to be intimate with another person, conflict is part of the equation, and conflict is no fun. And we have to learn some skills to turn conflict into a window of connection.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that so? It just drives me. Disney movies, come on.
I know, right? I know. And that's the other thing, Dana, is Hollywood is feeding us these stories that are not true
I
about.
know, and I just love a good chick flick.
Yes, because it's a break. We want a break from the reality. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that is the question I ask myself all the time. Am I stuck in the little tiny bedroom, or
Yeah,
am I able to look at the stars for a moment?
I love that. I love that.
But the second piece that I wanted to pull off of this is when David said that to you, we were having fun until you came home.
Mm-hmm.
You describe in the book, so I read that. I was like, oh, I've heard so many people give similar examples. I've experienced similar examples. I've been the one that said those examples. And I was expecting you in the book to say, that was not okay. And you flipped that and you said, that was David standing up. Maybe it was the right way, maybe it was the wrong way, to a condition that I was trying to lay out, and him setting, I'm not going to accept that condition.
I am so glad you connected with this because
Mm-hmm.
this is, early on in our conversation today, we talked about building boundaries. David was building a boundary. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get to treat me this way. You
Mm-hmm.
don't get to walk in the door after I've had the weekend I've had and accuse me of being a bad dad. That is, you can't talk to me that way. And I had loved my husband conditionally up until that moment. I would give him the cold shoulder. I would ice him out when he didn't do it the way I wanted. Now, remember, our panic responses are I'm in panic, I fight, he freezes. So when we take, I took full advantage of that. And I just created a narrative in our marriage that I am the doer of all things, and all you do is stand around and look lost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's me applying a narrative to his panic response to me. And he is tired of that conditional love. So I would give him the cold shoulder. I would call him out. I would go, "You're so not engaged." You see, this is why I say I was a little critical, is I would go, "You're selfish. You can't seem to contribute." I didn't get curious about why he was so still. And in fairness to myself, that is because I didn't understand that when he had that deer in the headlights look, that he was scared. I did not understand that. So
Mm-hmm.
I look at myself in those years and I go, I felt really alone. And the more I felt alone, the more panicked I became, the more I fought for a marriage. But what I needed to do was quiet down, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so what that moment became a pivotal moment for me because I could see I my husband doesn't say things like I was happier before you came home. He just doesn't say that kind of thing, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
So he was laying a boundary to say you stop dictating to me who I'm supposed to be in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had sort of given him conditional messages, very subtle, because I'm very skilled, so I could give very subtle messages that said, this is the behavior that's acceptable. You're right if you do it this way, you're wrong if you do it that way. And so I was kind of pushing him out of our tribe unless he did it my way.
Mm-hmm.
That's conditional love. And I wasn't accepting David for who he was and trying to get curious about, what do you want to contribute to our family? How are you navigating this really stressful season of our life?
Mm-hmm. Okay, for the listeners, I want to play both sides of the scenario because I want a listener, if there's a listener that is receiving conditional love, I want to jump into the David narrative so that we can talk about ways to maybe assess that and things to say to try and change or to analyze if that is what is happening. Could you help me do that a little bit?
I think with David in that moment, it was about his worthiness and believing that he is worthy. And David isn't the kind of person to like articulate all this to himself, and certainly not articulate it out loud. But what I will say about my husband is he has always known his worthiness. And he probably knew that weekend this was a good choice. The choices I made this weekend, I feel bonded to my children again. I had not seen my children in a week because of my wacky schedule. And we had a weekend filled with cuddles and snuggles. And that is what I want for my family. I am worthy. So for David, worthiness came naturally. And that's why he was able to set that boundary with me. Worthiness is not natural for me. So I have had to build my worthiness muscles over the years. And the symptoms that told me I didn't feel worthy is I got resentful. I kept score. I controlled. I outperformed. I was a perfectionist. Being a perfectionist, all those things make me try to claw my way to worthiness. But we are all worthy. We are all innately worthy. And so I do have some exercises in the book. And the name of the book is 6 Steps to Better Marriage Communication. I have some worthiness exercises to help you find your worthiness. And again, this goes to the questions that we ask ourselves, right? If we're asking what's wrong with this picture instead of, how can I understand my behavior in this moment? Why does my behavior make sense? How am I building the character that I want to become with my behavior? Oftentimes you'll see your really lousy behavior was there because you were protecting yourself. And you can have compassion to yourself for trying to keep you safe. And when you build that worthiness muscle, you stop loving conditionally and instead you set boundaries. You're not allowed to treat me that way. Does that help at all?
That helps a lot because I think we touched on at the beginning of the episode. If you were just to listen to this section, you could potentially interpret it as, all right, I need to get better at recognizing the conditions that I set in a relationship and I need to change that. But we mentioned at the start, there are times where people come into our offices or speak to us where they have put all of the work in and the partner is not. And I think it's just important for us to acknowledge that as well, that you can do all of your condition work and recognize the mistakes or the adaptations you need to make within a relationship. And sometimes, unfortunately, that is going to mean a relationship moving forward. And
this relationship will end.
Yes.
And then, yes. And a lot of people coach with me, Dana, because they just want to know I tried everything before I exited. And then when they exit, they feel a sense of calm and a sense of worthiness. Like, I really did try. And oddly enough, out of that grows a sense of compassion for their person because they go, you either don't want what I want or you don't have the capacity for it.
Which is beautiful,
Yeah.
especially if we're talking about families that have now moving into a new relationship of
Yes.
co-parenting.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
And do
Yes.
people ever come see you to build, I guess, the skills, the worthiness, the self-understanding before starting another relationship?
Um, wouldn't it be lovely if that's
I know. Wouldn't that be lovely if
people
people
come in my door because they are complaining about something.
yeah.
And then as we do the work, that's what happens. But, people come in my office for all the reasons like, my husband says he hates me, or I try everything and nothing works. And
Hmm.
or I've been dating over and over and over, and I can't seem to find a relationship where I'm treated well. So
Yes.
those are all the reasons. And because Dana, it is really hard to examine our own behavior with clear-eyed vision and compassion
Hmm.
by ourselves because
It
we
is.
don't want to be wrong because we'll be ostracized. And so I just sit there as this companion to say, let's understand why you did what you did. And then let's give you a ladder of tools to behave differently next time.
And I almost see one more piece too, Rebecca. I completely agree with that. And sometimes this plays out in my office often is one partner will say, well, they're acting just like their mother
Yes.
or their father.
Yes.
And so then when that partner then says, well, I have to do my work. And am I also going to have to grieve that maybe my mother or father, who I've looked up to this entire time for doing things so well, maybe also should have done a little bit more work? And I think there's like a
Yes.
grief piece that goes with that changing of what we're used to.
Oh my gosh. You've named one of the critical pieces, right, of growing up and emancipating is realizing my parent might not have done everything, quote unquote, right.
Mm-hmm.
And this right wrong thing, we've got to let it go because when we say my parent didn't do everything right, then we feel like we have to banish them somehow. And we don't. We can
No.
we can go, okay. So cuz with my father did some really wacky things. But when I understood where he came from, I went, holy cow, did he clean up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't have been asked to clean up all of it. So he cleaned up as much as he could. And now it's my turn to clean up more. And I have
Mm-hmm.
told my children, you are charged with cleaning up the trash I couldn't clean up.
Mm-hmm.
I did as much as I possibly could. And you have to trust me, but I didn't get it all cleaned up.
Yes. And I'm going to steal your and I can notice all of these things about you, notice that there is still this trash there, and hold a relationship with you in a way that feels good to me. I can use these 6 steps with you.
Yes, 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 yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because why, that binary of either the relationship works or it doesn't, that leaves us lonely. There
Yes.
has to be so much anding. You
Mm-hmm.
drive me crazy, and I love you.
And I love you. I really need to have this hard conversation with you because I love you. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
All of those
yes,
pieces. Mm-hmm.
yes.
I have so many more questions for you, and we're running out of time. I think the piece that I wanted to close with goes back to the condition piece because you gave an example of when we're little, or when our kids are little, or when we were little, we were often given things with conditions set on them. And the example in your book is you received a lollipop, and so often you heard, which is funny to me because right away my head went to every time I went to the doctor, to the pediatrician as a kid, if I got through the appointment, the doctor gave me the lollipop.
Right?
And so it was this condition set that kind of suck it up, get through this, and you get this treat.
Hmm.
And you touch on how those conditions kind of trickle into our adult life. Can you, as a summary for today's episode, I'm putting a lot on your plate. It, Tell me a little bit more about that.
Conditions, we all love conditionally. We just do. It's just part of our nature, and our work is to peel those conditions away as much as we can. But the lollipop example is like sometimes you give a kid a lollipop because they did well at the doctor's office. You say, if you're quiet during the appointment, you can have the lollipop.
Mm.
And so the kid decides, well, I'll take that bargain. And they suck it up, but they get the lollipop. Delayed gratification. Sometimes the deal is, I'll give you the lollipop as long as I'm your favorite person.
Mm-hmm.
And then a kid goes, I don't know if I like that bargain. And sometimes we still take the lollipop because we're hungry or we're so desperate to have that comfort, right? We get offered things that are, as a little kid, like I have grandchildren and my little granddaughter's 3 right now, and she's learning about emotions. And sometimes, I mean, it's going to come as a surprise to you, Dana, but I'm a big emotional person.
Really?
And sometimes I scare her because my emotions are so big and she hasn't learned to process all of what that is. And just watching a child learn they get pushed out of their comfort zone. When my emotions are big, I can see her, she's out of her comfort zone. And so I could in that moment say, here's a lollipop if you tell me I'm a great person. That's sort of like saying you have to tolerate behavior that's uncomfortable to you to get comforted. If instead we say, hopefully I'm enlightened enough now that my name as a grandparent is Lolly and my husband is Pops. So we're lollipops.
Oh, cute.
So I didn't know this example was going to come back to the lolly, but if I say, oh, Lolly has scared you, sweetheart, I've scared you. And that names the fear. When we overcome fear when we can name it. And then I want to plant the love. Sweetheart, I am sorry I scared you. And I want you to know all of me. And so what do we need to do right now so that you can regulate, self-regulate? You always talk about the needs behind the needs, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can, in that moment, instead of taking it personally that she's about to cry, and all I was doing was being myself, if I say to my granddaughter, oh, you have a need. You're needing to expand your definition of emotional, stuff in the world. You're growing. You've never seen this before. And if I name that and then say, I want to be all of who I am with you, but I can do it slowly over time, or I can comfort you now. Then we're being respectful both to ourselves and to the person to whom we're relating. And that's the tip of the triangle, 2 people, and then the relationship in the middle. And the more we focus on the relational piece and drawing us each toward that relationship, each of us gets our needs met, the stronger our triangle of love will be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And thank you for building a beautiful teaser for anyone listening wanting to get your book, because right away my brain went to, wow, she's tied together how to build these connective relationship moments with kids, with adolescents, with your sweetheart, and with your extended family. Each of the exercises I went through and I started breaking them into, okay, who do I want to think about this one for right now? And so I strongly recommend anyone listening to check your book out, because you've given the example with the kid and how this applies, but also I found it really difficult. I felt a bodily reaction when I saw in one of your exercises you break out these conditions and how they can play out in intimacy, in giving affection versus cold shoulder. And I would hazard a guess that a big chunk of our audience is curious to hear more examples of that and how to work through those things and notice if they are doing those things or how to respond if they are being done to them. So thank you. And thank you for writing that as well, because I think those are very hard aspects of relationships to touch on. And like I said, so many of the books that I read around relationship communication kind of skim over that condition piece. Mm-hmm. So everyone listening, show notes, we will have those 6 steps. We will have a link to Rebecca's book. If people want,
I'll give you some links to some. My podcast is called Habits for Your Happily Ever After, and I'll give you some links to some shows that kind of talk about these topics a little more.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming in and talking to us again. I feel like we're probably going to have you on for a 3rd time, because if you saw my notes right now, you'd see that there were so many more that I want to jump into. So audience, please let us know through email or through approaching either of us and, that you want to hear more. And if there's any specific questions that you feel like we missed out, this is an awesome opportunity for anyone to have a chance to anonymously ask you questions and use me as the scapegoat.
There you go. There you go. I love it. Dana, it is such a pleasure to know you. I'm so grateful for these conversations. It makes me feel just more connected as a human. And you're doing such good work in the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. And the same to you. And maybe one day we'll get to cross paths on the ski hill. All right. Have a great day, everyone. And stay tuned for our bi-weekly podcast. Our next one will be out in 2 weeks.